Have you ever caught yourself scrolling through social media, feeling like everyone else's life is better than yours? Their vacations look more glamorous, their relationships seem picture perfect, and their achievements, well, they make yours feel almost invisible. It's like everyone else is living in a highlight reel while you're stuck in the behind-the-scenes footage. It's exhausting, isn't it? That constant voice whispering, "Why can't I have what they have?" Or "Why am I not where they are?" You're not alone in feeling this way. It's something most of us have experienced at some point. These thoughts might feel harmless at first, but they start to take root, shaping how you see yourself and your life. Toxic comparisons like these quietly chip away at your happiness, making it harder to appreciate what you already have. It's not just about social media either. Maybe you've looked at a coworker and thought they're doing better than you. Or you've compared your progress in life to a sibling, a friend, or even a stranger. The result is always the same: a growing sense of dissatisfaction and an ever-widening gap between you and the peace of mind you truly deserve. That's why today we're talking about 11 toxic comparisons that are destroying your happiness and how to break free. The truth is, comparisons are part of being human. They're hardwired into us. But the problem arises when these comparisons aren't constructive. Instead of motivating us, they leave us feeling drained, inadequate, or even resentful. And here's the tricky part. It's so easy to get caught in this trap without even realizing it. The next thing you know, you're questioning your worth, your abilities, and the value of your life. But here's the good news. There's a way out. You don't have to stay stuck in this cycle. The wisdom of Stoicism offers powerful tools to help us break free from the grip of toxic comparisons. By shifting our focus inward and learning to value what truly matters, we can reclaim our happiness and build a more grounded, fulfilling life. Imagine how it would feel to let go of that constant pressure, to stop measuring yourself against others, and to finally embrace your own path. That's what we're here to explore today. In this video, we're going to uncover 11 toxic comparisons that might be holding you back. More importantly, we'll dive into practical ways to overcome them, all through the lens of Stoic philosophy. Stoicism is all about focusing on what's within your control, and that's exactly the perspective we'll use to tackle these challenges. Before we get started, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to like this video. It might seem like a small gesture, but it helps share these ideas with more people who could benefit from them. And if this is your first time here, welcome. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you won't miss any future videos about Stoicism and living a better life. This journey isn't about perfection or completely eliminating comparisons. That would be unrealistic. Instead, it's about awareness. By understanding the ways these comparisons work against you, you can start to break their hold and focus on living a life that's true to you. So let's begin and see how Stoicism can help you turn these harmful thoughts into opportunities for growth and peace of mind. Comparison number 1. The why them and not me. Have you ever caught yourself looking at someone else's life and thinking, why them and not me? Maybe it's a friend who seems to effortlessly climb the career ladder, a neighbor with a beautiful home, or even a stranger on social media living a life that feels just out of reach. It's a familiar feeling, isn't it? That little pang of envy mixed with self-doubt, whispering, what am I doing wrong? This type of thinking is so common that it often feels natural, but it's one of the most toxic traps we can fall into. Here's why. It focuses entirely on lack. Instead of appreciating what you have, this mindset highlights what you don't. It creates a narrative in your mind that somehow you're not enough, not smart enough, not talented enough, not lucky enough. And the more you dwell on these thoughts, the more they grow, chipping away at your self-esteem and happiness. Think about it. How often do we assume someone else's life is perfect just because of what we see on the surface? Maybe you scroll through Instagram and see that influencer with the perfect family, or the entrepreneur who's always jet-setting to exotic places. It's easy to believe they've got it all figured out, but what we're seeing is only a small, curated glimpse. Behind the scenes, their lives may be filled with struggles and insecurities you'd never guess, yet we compare our entire reality to their highlight reel. Now let's take a step back and look at this through the lens of Stoicism. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is to focus on what's within your control and let go of what isn't. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you compare yourself to others, you're giving power to external circumstances, things you can't control. Their success, their circumstances, their choices, these are all beyond your influence. What you can control, though, is your own effort, your own mindset, and the way you choose to view your life. Imagine for a moment what would happen if you shifted that focus. Instead of thinking, "Why them and not me?" you could ask, "What can I do to make progress on my own journey?" It's not about competing with others. It's about becoming better than the version of yourself from yesterday. This simple shift is liberating. It allows you to focus on growth, not lack, and on your own unique path rather than someone else's. Let me share a story to bring this idea home. There was a time in my own life when I couldn't help but compare myself to a friend who seemed to have it all: a great job, a supportive partner, and everything just clicking into place. Meanwhile, I was struggling to figure out my own direction. I remember feeling this heavy weight, thinking, why is it so easy for them and so hard for me? But then, one day, I had a realization. My energy was entirely focused on their life, not mine. I wasn't doing anything to change my situation because I was too busy feeling envious of theirs. That's when I started practicing what the Stoics teach. I began asking myself, what's one thing I can control right now to improve my situation? It wasn't an overnight fix, but gradually I shifted my perspective. Instead of feeling bitter about their success, I started feeling inspired by it. I focused on my own progress, one small step at a time, and over time, I realized how much lighter I felt. Here's the practical takeaway. The next time you catch yourself thinking, why them and not me? Pause for a moment. Take a deep breath and remind yourself of Marcus Aurelius's words. Focus on what's within your control. Then, grab a notebook or your phone and write down 3 things you're grateful for in your own life. This might sound simple, but gratitude has a way of shifting your perspective. It helps you see abundance where you once saw lack. And here's one more tip. Celebrate your own wins, no matter how small they might seem. Did you make progress on a personal goal? Did you take a step, even a tiny one, towards something that matters to you? Acknowledge it. Your journey is unique, and every step forward deserves recognition. The truth is, we can never fully understand someone else's life, and comparisons will only distract us from our own potential. By focusing on what truly matters, your growth, your effort, your values, you can break free from this toxic mindset. So, the next time that little voice whispers, "Why them and not me?" answer it with, "I'm on my own path and that's exactly where I need to be." Comparison number 2, the "I'm not where I should be." Have you ever felt like life is passing you by? Like you're standing still while everyone around you is racing ahead? Maybe you've thought, I should have achieved more by now. I should be further along. It's that sinking feeling that you're not where you're supposed to be. Sound familiar? It's a painful place to be, watching friends and peers hit life's milestones while you feel stuck. Someone just got a promotion, another is getting married, and yet another seems to be living their dream life, checking off goals like they're on a conveyor belt of success. Meanwhile, you're left questioning yourself, wondering why your own progress feels so slow. These thoughts don't just show up once, they linger, growing louder every time you compare yourself to others or to the expectations you've created in your own mind. This mindset is toxic because it keeps you trapped in a constant state of dissatisfaction. It makes you focus on the gap between where you are and where you think you should be, instead of recognizing the progress you've made. It's like climbing a mountain, but only looking at the peak you haven't reached yet, ignoring how far you've already come. The worst part? These shoulds you're holding on to about where you should be or what you should have achieved, they're often not even yours. They're expectations borrowed from society, family, or even social media, and carrying them around feels like carrying someone else's luggage on your journey. It weighs you down. But here's the thing. There's no universal timeline for success. Life isn't a race, and there's no one-size-fits-all path. This idea that you're behind, it's a lie. You're not behind. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, and that's where Stoicism offers us some powerful guidance. Stoicism teaches us to let go of the illusion of control over external circumstances and focus on what's truly in our power, our actions, our mindset, and our values. Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher, put it simply: first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This isn't about meeting someone else's definition of success. It's about defining your own. Instead of measuring your worth by where you think you should be, ask yourself, am I living in alignment with my values? Am I taking steps, no matter how small, toward what truly matters to me? Think about it for a moment. How often do we stress about being behind because we've compared ourselves to someone else's journey? It's like comparing apples and oranges. They're completely different, yet we act as if everyone is running the same race on the same track. But here's a secret. No one has the same starting point, the same obstacles, or the same destination. Your life is uniquely yours. And that's not a weakness. It's your greatest strength. Let me share a story with you. A friend of mine spent years feeling like she was falling behind because, at 30, she hadn't settled down like many of her peers. Every time she scrolled through social media and saw engagement announcements, she'd feel a pang of failure. But one day, she decided to stop comparing herself to others and start focusing on what truly made her happy. She realized she valued adventure and growth more than ticking off life's traditional milestones. So, she took a leap, moved to a new city, and started pursuing a career that genuinely excited her. It wasn't the timeline society expected, but it was the timeline she needed. And the joy she found wasn't from catching up, but from living authentically. Here's what I want you to take away. You don't have to meet anyone else's expectations to live a fulfilling life. Not society's, not your family's, and not even the unrealistic ones you've set for yourself. The only timeline that matters is your own. And just because your path doesn't look like someone else's, doesn't mean it's any less valid or valuable. The next time you catch yourself thinking, I should be further along, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, who decided this timeline for me? Is this truly what I want, or am I chasing someone else's version of success? Once you've asked those questions, try this. Write down 3 things you've accomplished recently, no matter how small they may seem. Did you take a step toward a goal? Did you handle a challenge with grace? Did you show kindness to yourself or someone else? Celebrate those moments because they matter. And if the weight of those shoulds feels too heavy, remember what the Stoics teach us. Acceptance is freedom. Practice amor fati, the love of fate. Embrace your journey with all its twists and turns as uniquely yours. Instead of wishing things were different, choose to see the beauty in where you are right now. After all, the only thing that truly matters is that you're moving forward, one step at a time, on the path that feels right for you. You're not behind. You're on your way, and that's exactly where you're supposed to be. Comparison number 3. The social media highlight reel. Have you ever found yourself scrolling through social media and suddenly it feels like your life just doesn't measure up? There's that perfect vacation photo, a couple beaming with happiness, or someone holding a trophy with a caption that says, "Hard work pays off." In that moment, it's easy to feel like everyone else is living their best life while you're stuck in the ordinary. Maybe you even think, why isn't my life like this? It's so relatable because we've all been there, scrolling through the highlight reel of someone else's life and feeling that sharp sting of comparison. But here's the catch. What you're seeing isn't the full story. Social media is designed to showcase the most polished, curated moments of someone's life, not the messy, unfiltered reality. It's like watching a movie trailer and assuming you've seen the whole film. The danger of this comparison is how sneaky it is. At first, it might seem harmless, just a quick scroll to pass the time, but the more you compare, the more you start to feel like you're falling short. It creates this invisible measuring stick where your happiness and self-worth are tied to someone else's filtered reality. The worst part, it's not even a fair comparison because you're comparing your behind-the-scenes moments to their highlight reel. It's exhausting, and it leaves you feeling like you're constantly playing catch-up. Now let's bring in some Stoic wisdom to help shift this mindset. One of the most powerful principles in Stoicism is to focus on what's within your control. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The images you see on social media, completely outside your control. But how you interpret them, that's entirely up to you. Imagine this. Instead of looking at someone else's photos and feeling inadequate, you could choose to pause and remind yourself that what you're seeing is just one small part of their life. Behind that perfect photo, there might be struggles, insecurities, or challenges you can't see. Everyone has their own battles, no matter how perfect their feed might look. It's not about denying their joy, but about recognizing that their joy doesn't diminish your own. Let me share a story with you. A few years ago, I was following this travel influencer whose life looked like an endless adventure. Every day, a new destination, a beautiful sunset, and an inspiring caption about living life to the fullest. I started to feel like my life wasn't exciting enough, like I was missing out on something. But then, I read a post where they opened up about how they often felt lonely, always being on the move, away from friends and family. It hit me. I had been comparing my life to an illusion, to a story that only showed the good parts. That realization changed the way I viewed social media. I started to see it for what it is, a curated highlight reel, not a complete picture. Here's a practical takeaway for when you find yourself in this comparison trap. The next time you're scrolling and feel that twinge of inadequacy, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what's the full story here? What am I not seeing behind this post? Then, shift your focus inward. Write down 3 things in your own life that you're grateful for right now. They don't have to be big things. Maybe it's your morning coffee, a kind word from a friend, or the fact that you accomplished something small today. Gratitude has a way of bringing your attention back to the present, to what's real and meaningful in your own life. Another thing you can do is set boundaries with social media. I'm not saying you have to quit entirely. Social media can be a great tool when used mindfully. But try limiting the time you spend scrolling or unfollow accounts that trigger negative comparisons. Curate your feed to include people and content that inspire and uplift you, not those that make you feel less than. Here's a powerful thought from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. What if we applied that idea to our digital lives? What if instead of wanting the lives we see on social media, we focused on wanting less? Less comparison, less envy, less pressure to measure up. By shifting your attention to what truly matters, your own growth, your own happiness, you can find freedom from this toxic cycle. Remember, the lives you see on social media aren't better than yours, they're just different. Your story is unique, and it's worth celebrating, not because it looks perfect, but because it's yours. So the next time you catch yourself comparing, take a deep breath, put down your phone, and reconnect with the beauty of your own life. You are enough. Comparison number just 4. As you are. The "if only I had X, I'd be happy." Have you ever caught yourself thinking, if only I had that job, that house, or that relationship, I'd finally be happy? It's such a common thought, isn't it? We look at our lives, see what's missing, and convince ourselves that happiness is just one achievement or possession away. Maybe it's a promotion you've been eyeing, a dream vacation you can't stop thinking about, or even a version of yourself that feels out of reach. More confident, more accomplished, more perfect. The problem is, the goalpost keeps moving. Once you get that X, there's always a new X waiting to take its place. This mindset can feel motivating at first, like it's driving you to work harder or aim higher. But over time, it becomes a trap. You start living in a constant state of almost there, never fully satisfied with where you are or what you have. It's like chasing a mirage. No matter how far you run, happiness always seems just out of reach. And here's the kicker. Even when you do achieve those goals, the happiness you feel is often fleeting. That initial excitement fades, and soon you're back to thinking, what's next? This way of thinking is toxic because it places your happiness entirely outside of yourself. It ties your sense of fulfillment to something external, something you may or may not ever have. It's as if you're saying, I can't be happy until... But the truth is, happiness that depends on external circumstances is fragile. What happens if that promotion doesn't come? What if that dream house falls through? Does that mean you're destined to be unhappy? Let's take a step back and look at this through the lens of Stoicism. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is the idea that true happiness comes from within, not from external possessions or achievements. Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher, said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." In other words, the key to happiness isn't getting everything you want, it's wanting less. It's learning to find contentment in the present moment with what you already have. Think about it. How often do we convince ourselves that life will be better once we achieve something, only to find that the feeling doesn't last? Maybe you've experienced this before. You get the thing you wanted so badly, and for a while it feels amazing. But then life goes back to normal, and that sense of fulfillment fades. It's not that goals or achievements are bad. They're not. It's just that they're not the ultimate source of happiness we often make them out to be. Let me share a story to bring this to life. I once had a friend who spent years saving up for their dream car. It was all they talked about, how owning that car would make them feel successful, confident, and happy. When they finally bought it, they were thrilled for a while. But within a few months, it was just another car. It didn't magically transform their life or make them feel permanently fulfilled. What they realized, and what we all need to understand, is that happiness isn't something you achieve, it's something you cultivate right here and now. Here's a practical takeaway to help shift your perspective when you find yourself caught in this comparison. The next time you think, if only I had X, I'd be happy, pause and ask yourself this question: what am I grateful for right now? Gratitude is a powerful antidote to this mindset because it redirects your focus from what's missing to what's already present. Maybe it's the roof over your head, the meal you just enjoyed, or a meaningful conversation you had with a friend. These small moments of gratitude can ground you in the present and remind you that happiness doesn't have to wait for some future milestone. Another tip is to reframe your goals. Instead of thinking, I'll be happy when I achieve this, try focusing on the process rather than the outcome. Ask yourself, what can I enjoy about this journey? For example, if you're working toward a promotion, find fulfillment in the skills you're building or the relationships you're strengthening along the way. When you focus on the present moment, you'll find that happiness is already within your reach. Lastly, remember that you are enough as you are right now. The world will always try to convince you that you need more success, more possessions, more everything to be happy. But true happiness isn't found in adding more. It's found in appreciating what you already have. The Stoics understood this, and it's a lesson we can all benefit from today. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, if only I had X, I'd be happy, take a deep breath and remind yourself that happiness isn't something you have to chase. It's something you can choose right here, right now. You don't need to wait for some external achievement to feel fulfilled. You already have everything you need to begin cultivating a life of joy and contentment. Comparison number 5, the past versus present me. Have you ever looked back at a version of yourself from years ago and thought, I was so much better back then? Maybe it was when you were in great shape, or when your career was thriving, or when you felt more confident, more vibrant, more alive. It's almost like you're holding up an old photograph of yourself and thinking, what happened? Why can't I be that person anymore? It's a heavy feeling, isn't it? This comparison can feel like it's rooted in something positive, like a desire to improve or return to a better place. But in reality, it often traps you in a cycle of self-doubt and regret. It's as if you're constantly measuring yourself against a shadow, one that gets more and more distorted over time. You might think you're striving to get back to who you once were, but instead you're stuck mourning a past version of yourself, unable to fully appreciate who you are now. The problem with this kind of thinking is that it anchors you in the past. Instead of living in the present and embracing the opportunities in front of you, you're focused on what's already gone. And here's the thing about the past. It's not as perfect as we remember it. Nostalgia has a funny way of painting things in a golden light, glossing over the struggles and challenges we faced back then. You might look back and think, I was so confident, but forget the nights you spent doubting yourself, or you might remember being in great shape, but overlook the sacrifices and insecurities that came with it. This comparison is toxic because it blinds you to your growth. Every experience you've been through, every setback and triumph has shaped you into who you are today. Yet when you compare yourself to a past version, you're essentially saying, who I am now isn't good enough. And that's simply not true. Let's bring in a Stoic perspective to reframe this. Stoicism teaches us to focus on the present moment, to accept what is and let go of what was. Marcus Aurelius wrote, do not disturb yourself by picturing your life as a whole. Do not assemble in your mind the various troubles which have come to you in the past and will come again in the future, but ask yourself about the present. What is there in this which is intolerable and past-bearing? In other words, the only moment that truly matters is now. Who you were in the past is gone. Who you will be in the future hasn't arrived yet. But who you are now, that's real. That's where your power lies. Think about it. How often do we idealize the past, forgetting that it wasn't as perfect as we make it out to be? It's like flipping through an old photo album. You smile at the memories, but you don't see the full context, the doubts, the struggles, the lessons you were learning in those moments. The person you were back then wasn't better, they were just different. And that's okay. Growth isn't about holding on to who you were, it's about embracing who you're becoming. Let me share a personal story. A few years ago, I went through a phase where I kept comparing myself to my younger self. I remembered being more energetic, more ambitious, and honestly, a little less cynical. I'd look at old photos and think, where did that person go? But then I started journaling, something the Stoics often recommend. As I wrote, I began to see that my younger self wasn't as fearless as I remembered. They were figuring things out, just like I am now. The wisdom I've gained, the resilience I've built, and even the scars I carry, they're all part of my growth. I realized I didn't lose my past self. I've simply evolved into someone new. Here's what I'd encourage you to do the next time you catch yourself comparing your present self to your past. Pause for a moment and reflect on how you've grown. Maybe you've become more patient, more empathetic, or more resilient. Write down 3 ways you've changed for the better. Even if those changes feel small, they're worth celebrating. Growth isn't always flashy, but it's always significant. Another practical step is to practice mindfulness. When you find your thoughts drifting to the past, gently bring yourself back to the present. Ask yourself, what can I do right now to move closer to the person I want to be? Focus on the small actions within your control, whether it's taking a walk, reaching out to a friend, or simply taking a deep breath. Lastly, remind yourself that life isn't about staying the same. It's about adapting, learning, and evolving. The person you were in the past isn't better than who you are now. They're just part of your story. And your story is still unfolding, one chapter at a time. So the next time you find yourself stuck in the past versus present me comparison, take a moment to appreciate how far you've come. You're not who you used to be, and that's a beautiful thing. Who you are now is enough, and who you're becoming is something worth looking forward to. Comparison number 6, the why is life easier for others? Have you ever looked at someone else's life and thought, why does everything seem to come so easily for them while I have to struggle so much? Maybe it's that friend who always seems to land the perfect job, the neighbor whose family looks like they stepped out of a magazine, or even that stranger on social media living a life that feels effortless. It's hard not to wonder sometimes, why does their path seem so smooth while mine feels so full of obstacles? This kind of thinking is so relatable because we've all been there, comparing our challenges to someone else's apparent ease and feeling like life has been unfairly hard on us. But here's the truth, this comparison is built on an illusion. What you're seeing is only the surface. You're comparing your struggles, which you know intimately, to their success, which is all you can see. It's like looking at an iceberg and thinking the visible part is all there is, completely missing the massive unseen foundation of effort, setbacks, and struggles that lie beneath. This mindset is toxic because it focuses entirely on what you lack and what others seem to have in abundance. It creates resentment, not only toward others, but also toward your own life. And here's the danger. It makes you forget that every life is unique, with its own battles and victories. What looks easy from the outside might actually be the result of years of hard work, perseverance, or even struggles you can't imagine. When you compare your life to someone else's, you're ignoring your own journey. You're dismissing the unique challenges that have shaped you and the strengths you've built along the way. And the worst part? It blinds you to the good things in your own life because your focus is entirely on someone else's. Now let's bring in Stoicism to reframe this. One of the central teachings of Stoicism is the idea of amor fati, or love of fate. It's about embracing your life exactly as it is, including its challenges, because those challenges are what shape you. Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher, said, "Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but rather wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly." In other words, it's not about wishing your life were easier or more like someone else's. It's about accepting your path and finding strength in your unique experiences. Think about it. How often do we assume that someone else's life is easier simply because we're not living it? It's so easy to see someone's success and forget that their journey might include struggles we'll never know about. For example, that friend who always seems to have the perfect job might have dealt with years of rejection or self-doubt. The neighbor with the picture-perfect family might be quietly navigating challenges you can't see. And that person on social media with the dream life, they're probably not posting about the bad days, the missed opportunities, or the moments they feel just as lost as you do. Let me share a story. I once knew someone who seemed to have it all: great career, beautiful home, and a thriving social life. I found myself thinking, why is life so easy for them? But over time, I learned about the struggles they'd faced, losses, sacrifices, and battles with their own mental health that they rarely spoke about. It was a humbling reminder that what we see is never the whole story. Their life wasn't easier, it was just different, and so is yours. Here's what I'd encourage you to do the next time you catch yourself thinking, why is life easier for them? First, pause and ask yourself, what's the full story here? What might I not be seeing? This question can help shift your perspective and remind you that no life is without its challenges. Next, turn your focus inward. Write down 3 ways your own struggles have made you stronger. Maybe they've taught you resilience, empathy, or problem-solving skills. These are qualities that can't be measured by external success, but are incredibly valuable. Another tip is to practice gratitude. It's easy to focus on what's missing or difficult in your life, but gratitude shifts your attention to what's already good. Take a moment to appreciate the things you've worked for, the people who support you, or even the small joys in your day-to-day life. Gratitude doesn't erase challenges, but it helps you see the bigger picture. Lastly, remember that life isn't meant to be compared. Your journey is yours alone, and it's shaped by the unique challenges and opportunities you face. Instead of wishing your path were different, embrace it, learn from it, grow through it. The Stoics remind us that it's not the obstacles in our lives that define us, but how we respond to them. So the next time you find yourself thinking, why is life easier for others? Take a deep breath and remind yourself that no one's path is without struggles. Focus on your own journey and trust that every challenge you face is shaping you into a stronger, wiser, and more resilient version of yourself. You're exactly where you need to be, and that's something worth celebrating. Comparison number 7. The I should be more like them. Have you ever looked at someone and thought, I wish I could be more like them? Maybe it's a friend who seems effortlessly charismatic, a co-worker who always knows the right thing to say, or someone whose confidence lights up every room they walk into. It's easy to fall into this trap, seeing qualities in others that you feel you lack and thinking, if I could just be more like them, my life would be better. This kind of comparison can feel motivating at first, almost like you're setting a goal to improve yourself, but more often than not, it becomes a source of self-doubt. Instead of celebrating your unique qualities, you start picking yourself apart, focusing on everything you think you're not. The danger here is that it shifts your attention away from your own strengths, making you feel inadequate, even when there's no real reason to feel that way. The problem with the I should be more like them mindset is that it ignores one simple truth. You're not them, and you're not supposed to be. Each of us is unique, with our own combination of strengths, weaknesses, experiences, and values. When you try to mold yourself into someone else, you lose touch with what makes you, you. Instead of growing into the best version of yourself, you end up chasing an ideal that doesn't align with who you truly are. Let's take a step back and look at this through the lens of Stoicism. One of the most empowering ideas in Stoicism is the concept of living in alignment with your nature. Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher, reminds us, know first who you are and then adorn yourself accordingly. This isn't about changing who you are to fit someone else's mold. It's about recognizing your unique strengths and using them to live authentically. In other words, instead of trying to be more like someone else, focus on becoming more like yourself, the best, truest version of you. Think about it for a moment. How often do we admire qualities in others without realizing we have our own set of qualities that others admire? You might envy someone's confidence, but maybe they wish they had your kindness. You might admire someone's ambition, but they could be struggling to find the inner peace you already have. The point is, you don't see the full picture, just like they don't see yours. Let me share a story. A friend of mine once told me about her struggle with this exact comparison. She had a colleague who was incredibly outgoing and seemed to make connections effortlessly. My friend, on the other hand, was more reserved and felt like she didn't measure up in social situations. She kept thinking, if only I could be more like them, I'd be more successful. But one day, during a team project, that same colleague came up to her and said, "I really admire how thoughtful and calm you are. You have this way of making people feel heard, and I wish I could do that." It was a light bulb moment for her. She realized that her quiet nature wasn't a flaw, it was her strength. Here's the thing, we all have something valuable to offer, but we can only tap into it if we stop trying to be someone we're not. Instead of focusing on what you think you're missing, start focusing on what makes you unique. What are your strengths? What do you bring to the table that no one else can? These are the qualities that make you who you are, and they deserve to be nurtured. Here's a practical takeaway for the next time you catch yourself thinking, "I should be more like them." Pause and ask yourself, what is it about them that I admire, and how can I cultivate that quality in my own way? For example, if you admire someone's confidence, think about how you can build your own confidence, not by imitating them, but by leaning into what makes you feel strong and capable. Maybe it's honing a skill you're passionate about, or simply practicing self-acceptance. Another tip is to take stock of your own qualities. Write down 3 things you like about yourself, qualities that make you proud. They don't have to be big or flashy. Maybe you're a good listener, or you have a great sense of humor, or you're someone people can rely on. Whatever they are, take a moment to appreciate them. These qualities are part of what makes you, you. Lastly, remember the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look. You don't need to look outside of yourself to find worth or validation. Everything you need to grow and thrive is already within you. So the next time you think, "I should be more like them," take a deep breath and remind yourself, you're not supposed to be them. You're supposed to be you. And that's not just enough, it's extraordinary. Comparison number 8, their success equals my failure. Have you ever seen someone else's big win and felt a pang of defeat? Maybe it's a friend getting a promotion, a family member starting their dream business, or someone in your field achieving exactly what you've been working toward. Instead of feeling happy for them, you find yourself thinking, well, that's it. If they've succeeded, there's no room left for me. It's as though their success has stolen a spot that could have been yours. Does that feeling sound familiar? This kind of comparison is surprisingly common, and it's incredibly toxic. It makes life feel like a zero-sum game, where someone else's achievements automatically mean you've lost. But here's the thing, success isn't a pie with a limited number of slices. Someone else having a slice doesn't mean there's less for you. Still, this mindset can be hard to shake, especially when you're already feeling like you're not where you want to be. The problem with this comparison is that it shifts your focus outward instead of inward. It makes you judge your worth based on someone else's milestones, which are completely irrelevant to your unique path. And worse, it creates resentment, not only toward others, but also toward yourself. You might start questioning your abilities, your progress, or even your potential. That kind of thinking doesn't just hurt your confidence, it also makes it harder to celebrate the wins you do have, no matter how meaningful they are. Let's pause for a moment and look at this through the lens of Stoicism. One of the most powerful ideas in Stoicism is the principle of focusing on what's within your control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." When you compare your success to someone else's, you're giving your thoughts, and therefore your happiness, over to something entirely outside your control. Their journey, their achievements, their timeline, none of these things are within your power to influence. But what is in your control? Your effort, your mindset, your ability to define success on your own terms. Imagine if you could shift your focus from competition to collaboration. Instead of seeing someone else's success as a threat, what if you saw it as proof that success is possible? that it's not a door that's closed, but one that's open, waiting for you to step through in your own time and your own way. Here's a personal story to bring this idea to life. I once had a colleague who achieved what I thought was my dream job. I remember feeling crushed, thinking that was supposed to be me. But as I sat with that feeling, I realized something important. Their success wasn't my failure, it was simply their success. Their path was different from mine, shaped by their experiences, their skills, and their timing. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I could choose to be inspired by their achievement instead of threatened by it. And that small shift in perspective changed everything. I started focusing on my own growth, my own journey. And over time, I found opportunities that felt even more aligned with who I was becoming. So, how do you break free from the "their success equals my failure" mindset? Start by reminding yourself that life isn't a competition. You're not racing against anyone else. You're walking your own path, at your own pace, and that's exactly how it's meant to be. When you catch yourself feeling envious or defeated, pause and ask yourself, what does their success really mean for me? Most of the time, the answer is nothing. Their success doesn't take anything away from you. Another practical step is to shift your focus inward. Write down 3 things you've achieved recently, no matter how small they might seem. Did you finish a project? Learn a new skill? Show kindness to someone? These moments matter. They're proof that you're making progress, even if it looks different from someone else's. Celebrate those wins. They're yours, and they're valuable. Lastly, practice gratitude, not just for your own journey, but for the success of others. When you see someone achieve something great, instead of feeling envious, try saying to yourself, "Good for them, I'm glad they're succeeding." This doesn't just benefit them, it benefits you too. Gratitude helps you cultivate a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. It reminds you that there's room for everyone to succeed, including you. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Let's take that a step further. Success doesn't come from comparing yourself to others, but from defining what truly matters to you and pursuing it with intention and effort. So, the next time you find yourself thinking, "Their success equals my failure," take a deep breath and remind yourself of this simple truth. Their path is theirs and yours is yours. There's no competition, only growth, only progress, only the unique story you're writing every single day. Celebrate your own wins, cheer for others, and trust that your journey is unfolding exactly as it's meant to. Comparison number 9. The why can't I be perfect? Have you ever caught yourself asking, why can't I just get it right? Why can't I be perfect? Maybe it's after making a mistake at work, saying the wrong thing in a conversation, or falling short of a goal you've been working toward. It's that frustrating voice in your head that whispers, "You should have done better. You're not enough." This comparison can feel like it's coming from a place of self-improvement, but in reality, it's a trap. It creates an impossible standard, perfection, that no one can ever reach. And when you inevitably fall short, it's not just disappointing, it's crushing. The "why can't I be perfect" mindset doesn't just steal your happiness, it also robs you of the joy of growth, the satisfaction of learning from mistakes, and the freedom to be human. The problem with chasing perfection is that it's a moving target. Even when you get close, it shifts, leaving you feeling like you're always one step behind. And here's the thing. Perfection isn't real. It's a construct, an idea we've been conditioned to believe exists because of societal pressures, cultural narratives, or even the carefully curated lives we see online. It's not just toxic, it's unattainable. And yet, we hold ourselves to this impossible standard, as if being anything less than perfect makes us unworthy. Now, let's turn to Stoicism to reframe this. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is the idea of progress over perfection. The Stoics believed that life isn't about achieving flawlessness. It's about striving to be better, little by little, every day. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if you seek perfection, you will find it impossible. But if you seek progress, you will find success. The focus isn't on never making mistakes, but on learning from them and using them as stepping stones for growth. Think about this. How many of the greatest lessons in your life came from things going perfectly? Probably not many. It's the challenges, the failures, and the missteps that shape us, teach us resilience, and push us to grow. Imagine how different your perspective would be if, instead of beating yourself up for falling short, you saw every mistake as an opportunity to improve. That's the power of shifting from perfection to progress. Let me share a personal story. A few years ago, I was working on a big project that I wanted to be absolutely flawless. I spent countless hours obsessing over every detail, trying to make it perfect. But no matter how much time and effort I poured into it, there was always something I thought I could improve. When I finally turned it in, all I could think about were the parts I hadn't perfected. Instead of feeling proud of what I'd accomplished, I felt defeated. Later, when I received feedback, I realized something that changed my perspective. The parts I had been most anxious about didn't even matter. What stood out were the core ideas, the effort I had put in, and the growth I had shown. That experience taught me that chasing perfection wasn't just exhausting, it was unnecessary. Here's the truth. You don't need to be perfect to be valuable, to be loved, or to make an impact. What matters isn't getting everything right all the time. It's showing up, doing your best, and learning along the way. Even the Stoics, who dedicated their lives to self-improvement, didn't aim for perfection. They aimed for progress. They understood that being human means making mistakes, and that those mistakes are opportunities, not failures. So, how do you let go of the "why can't I be perfect" mindset? Start by embracing your humanity. Remind yourself that making mistakes is not only normal, but necessary. The next time you catch yourself spiraling into self-criticism, pause and ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of focusing on what went wrong, shift your attention to how you can grow. Another practical step is to practice self-compassion. Imagine you're talking to a friend who just made the same mistake. Would you criticize them as harshly as you criticize yourself? Probably not. You'd likely reassure them, remind them of their strengths, and encourage them to keep going. Try extending that same kindness to yourself. It's not about excusing mistakes, but about recognizing that they don't define you. Finally, celebrate progress, no matter how small. Did you handle a situation better than you would have a year ago? Did you take one step closer to a goal, even if it wasn't perfect? Acknowledge it. Progress might not feel as glamorous as perfection, but it's real and it's something to be proud of. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Each time you fall short, you have a chance to start again, armed with the lessons you've learned. That's the beauty of imperfection. It's not the end of the story, it's just part of the journey. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, "Why can't I be perfect?" take a deep breath and remind yourself that perfection isn't the goal. Growth is. You don't need to be flawless to be enough. You already are, just as you are, mistakes and all. Comparison number 10. The "my challenges are unfair." Have you ever looked at the challenges in your life and thought, this isn't fair? Maybe you're dealing with a financial setback, a health issue, or a relationship problem, and it feels like the universe has singled you out. Meanwhile, you see others who seem to glide through life with barely a struggle. It's easy to wonder, why me? Why do I have to carry this burden while others seem to have it so easy? This thought is natural, but it can also be incredibly toxic. When you compare your challenges to someone else's apparent ease, you're creating a narrative that life is supposed to be fair, that everyone should have an equal share of struggles and blessings. But life doesn't work that way. Comparing your difficulties to someone else's can leave you feeling bitter, resentful, and even powerless. It makes you focus on what's wrong instead of what you can do to move forward. And worst of all, it blinds you to the strengths you've developed through those challenges. Here's the truth. Every person's life is a mix of visible and invisible struggles. Just because you can't see someone else's challenges doesn't mean they don't exist. That coworker who always seems cheerful might be navigating personal pain you'll never know about. That friend whose life looks picture perfect might be quietly dealing with battles they don't talk about. Life isn't fair, and it never will be, but that doesn't mean it's hopeless. Let's turn to Stoicism for a different perspective. The Stoics understood that challenges are an inevitable part of life, and they didn't waste time wishing things were different. Instead, they focused on how to respond to those challenges. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, your challenges aren't roadblocks, they're stepping stones. They're opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Think about it. How many of the lessons that have shaped you came from moments of struggle rather than ease? Challenges force us to dig deep, to discover strengths we didn't know we had. They teach us patience, creativity, and perseverance. They're not pleasant, but they're powerful. When you stop seeing them as unfair and start seeing them as opportunities, everything changes. Let me share a story. A friend of mine once went through a major financial crisis. She had always been someone who planned carefully and saved diligently, but an unexpected event wiped out her savings and left her scrambling. At first, she was devastated. She kept thinking, "Why is this happening to me? I did everything right." But over time, she started to shift her mindset. She realized that this challenge was teaching her something invaluable: how to adapt, how to find creative solutions, and how to let go of the illusion of control. Years later, she told me it was one of the hardest experiences of her life, but also one of the most transformative. She came out of it stronger, more resourceful, and more appreciative of what she had. Here's what I'd encourage you to do the next time you catch yourself thinking, "My challenges are unfair." First, pause and remind yourself that life isn't about fairness, it's about growth. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this challenge to become stronger? This shift in perspective doesn't make the challenge disappear, but it gives it purpose. It turns it into a tool for your growth rather than a source of frustration. Another practical step is to reframe your struggles as opportunities. Instead of focusing on what's wrong, focus on what you can do. Are there small steps you can take to improve your situation? Are there resources you can tap into, or people you can ask for support? Action is empowering, and even the smallest step forward can help you feel more in control. Lastly, practice gratitude. I know it might sound counterintuitive when you're facing a tough situation, but gratitude has a way of shifting your focus. Take a moment to reflect on what's still good in your life, even amidst the challenges. Maybe it's the support of a friend, the roof over your head, or even just the strength to keep going. Gratitude doesn't erase difficulties, but it helps you see the bigger picture. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." Your challenges aren't proof that life is unfair. They're proof that you're alive, that you're growing, that you're capable of enduring more than you think. The question isn't, "Why is this happening to me?" The question is, "What will I do with this?" So the next time you find yourself comparing your struggles to someone else's ease, take a deep breath and remember, their path is not yours. Your challenges are shaping you in ways you can't yet see, and they're giving you the tools you need to navigate this unpredictable journey called life. You're not defined by what happens to you, you're defined by how you respond, and that response is entirely within your control. Comparison number 11, the "I'm only valued if I measure up." Have you ever felt like your worth depends on meeting certain expectations, whether it's achieving a specific goal, reaching a milestone, or living up to what others expect from you? Maybe it's getting that promotion, hitting a personal best, or proving yourself in some way. And when you don't measure up, that little voice in your head starts whispering, "You're not good enough. You don't deserve to feel valued." It's such a common thought, isn't it? The belief that our worth is tied to our accomplishments, our titles, or even how others perceive us. This comparison of our value to external achievements can feel motivating at first, like it's pushing us to be better. But in reality, it's a trap. It turns life into a constant scoreboard where you're always trying to earn your value rather than recognizing it's something you already have. This mindset is toxic because it places your self-worth entirely outside of yourself. It makes you believe that if you fall short of a goal or fail to meet a certain standard, you're somehow less valuable as a person. It's exhausting and unsustainable. The truth is, no amount of external success can truly satisfy a sense of worth that comes from measuring yourself against others. When your value is tied to what you achieve or how you compare to others, you'll always feel like you're one step away from losing it. Now let's turn to Stoicism for a fresh perspective. One of the most liberating ideas in Stoicism is that your worth isn't defined by what you achieve or how others see you. Epictetus said, "Whoever values something outside his control has relinquished his control of happiness." In other words, when you tie your value to things outside of your control, like accomplishments or opinions, you give away your power. True worth comes from living in alignment with your values, not from ticking off a checklist of achievements. Think about it. How often do we assume that being loved, respected, or valued depends on doing more, being more, achieving more? But what if it doesn't? What if your value isn't something you earn, but something you inherently have? This isn't about denying the importance of goals or growth. Those are important, but they don't define your worth. Your worth is already there, rooted in who you are, not in what you do. Let me share a story. A close friend of mine used to tie her sense of value to her job performance. Every promotion, every accolade felt like proof that she was enough. But when she faced a setback, a project that didn't go as planned, she spiraled into self-doubt. She told me, "I feel like I've failed, like I'm not worth anything if I can't deliver." That was a wake-up call for her. She started reflecting on what truly made her valuable, not her job title or achievements, but her kindness, her loyalty, her creativity. She realized that her worth wasn't something she had to earn. It was something she carried with her all along. Here's what I'd encourage you to do the next time you catch yourself thinking, "I'm only valued if I measure up." First, pause and remind yourself that your worth isn't conditional. It's not tied to a performance review, a bank balance, or how many likes you get on social media. It's intrinsic. You're valuable simply because you exist, because you're human. Next, focus on living in alignment with your values rather than chasing external validation. Ask yourself, what matters most to me? Am I living in a way that reflects those priorities? For example, if kindness and integrity are important to you, those are the markers of your worth, not how much you've achieved or how others perceive you. Living authentically, in alignment with your values, is what makes life meaningful. Another practical step is to celebrate your intrinsic qualities. Take a moment to reflect on who you are, not what you've done. Maybe you're compassionate, dependable, or curious. Write down 3 things you value about yourself that have nothing to do with external accomplishments. This simple exercise can help you reconnect with your inherent worth. Lastly, remember the Stoic idea of focusing on what's within your control. You can't control outcomes or how others see you, but you can control your effort, your mindset, and the way you treat yourself. When you stop tying your worth to external things, you reclaim your power. You realize that you're enough, just as you are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Your value isn't something you have to prove. It's something you already possess. The next time you feel like you're only valued if you measure up, take a deep breath and remind yourself you are worthy, not because of what you've achieved, but because of who you are. And that will never change. As we come to the end of this journey, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've covered. We've explored 11 toxic comparisons that might be holding you back. Each one a trap that can steal your happiness, chip away at your confidence, and distract you from what truly matters. But we've also looked at how Stoicism can offer powerful tools to break free from these comparisons. It's not about avoiding comparisons altogether. That's human nature. Instead, it's about recognizing them when they arise, reframing them, and focusing on what's within your control. We've talked about the dangers of asking, "Why them and not me?" and the power of gratitude to shift your perspective. We've explored how to overcome the pressure of thinking, "I'm not where I should be," by embracing your unique journey. We discussed the highlight reels of social media, the endless pursuit of "if only I had X," and the pain of comparing your present self to your past. Each of these comparisons has its own challenges, but they all share a common thread. They pull your attention away from the present moment and the opportunities for growth it holds. The Stoics remind us to focus on what we can control, our actions, our mindset, and how we respond to the world around us. Life will always be full of challenges, but it's not the challenges themselves that define us. It's how we choose to face them. Whether it's letting go of perfection, reframing unfair struggles, or realizing that your value doesn't depend on measuring up to others, every step you take towards self-awareness and self-acceptance is a step toward a more fulfilling life. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these toxic comparisons resonates with you the most? Is there one you've struggled with recently, or one you're already working to overcome? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if this video gave you something to think about, don't forget to like it. Your support helps spread these ideas to others who might benefit from them. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. This channel is all about exploring Stoic insights and practical ways to live a better, more meaningful life. And I'd love for you to be part of that journey. Before we go, I want to leave you with a reminder. Your path is your own. It's not meant to look like anyone else's, and that's what makes it so special. The comparisons we've talked about today might feel overwhelming at times, but they don't define you. What defines you is how you choose to show up, how you choose to grow, and how you choose to embrace the unique journey that is yours alone. Remember, you are enough, just as you are. You don't need to meet anyone else's expectations or live up to some imagined standard to be worthy of happiness or fulfillment. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength is already within you, waiting to be tapped into. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I'm truly grateful for your presence and the opportunity to share these ideas with you. Life isn't about being perfect or getting everything right. It's about growth, connection, and the small, meaningful steps we take each day. So, as you move forward, let go of the comparisons that hold you back and focus on what truly matters, living in alignment with your values and embracing the beauty of your own imperfect, extraordinary life. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.